Morning of September 11th, I was up at the Fire Academy. I've been an instructor up there for years, and I actually taught probie school, which is the new recruits. Approximately 2 weeks before 9/11, that class had graduated. So we had a lull in between the incoming class coming in. So the instructors were there and we're getting our equipment and our manuals all ready to reset for the next crew to come in. So basically the academy was nothing but instructors up there that day. When 9/11 hit, we heard it on the radio, we looked out the windows, we saw it in the sky. I ran down to one of the buildings at the academy, which is called Mass Service. They restock and refill the cylinders, the air packs, for the entire job. So I ran down there and I asked the officer, I said, is there anything I can do to help you right now? And he said, take that truck over there, it's already loaded with full cylinders, take it down to ground zero. I said, all right, let me tell my boss where I'm at. Ran back, 2 minutes later, went to get that truck was gone. Somebody else took it, they couldn't wait. So we loaded up our spare rigs that we have at the academy, got all our equipment available, anything we can grab, we threw on the rigs, and we went screaming down the FDR with training academy rigs, if you will, loaded and staffed with instructors. When we pulled up, stepped out of the rig, looked down the block, basically it was all a cloud of concrete dust at that point. The first tower basically just came down, and when you look down the block, the only thing you basically noticed was any type of paper flying through the air. As the towers came down, the air curtain created pretty much a wave of air, and all the papers were just floating through the air. And it was totally eerie as far as the amount of silence that was there. It turned out to be a long day. I looked later on down the block and saw that vehicle I was supposed to be driving, somebody else took it in my place. And then when I did get down there, approximately maybe half hour, 45 minutes later, I looked down the block and there was that rig flatter than a pancake, crushed. To a certain degree, obviously, there was some unknown confusion. You know, who was doing what, who's working where. Ultimately, pretty much maybe halfway through the day, they gave us assignments to basically look for remains. We were 2 blocks away and we were lined up shoulder to shoulder, starting on the street corner, and we would walk down the block. And every step that you took would be a little dust cloud because you're walking through approximately 6 inches of powdered concrete. You know, it was sort of like the Peanuts character, Pigpen. When you walked, you took a step and a dust cloud came up. That's basically it was. And any part or fragment of remains that you found basically had to be logged, cataloged, and it was definitely interesting to the point where you can't imagine how devastation like that can actually occur. You're walking down the street and we found human body parts. Found a female's wrist. You knew it was a female with the fingers because the fingers had nail polish on it. You go down a couple more, you know, maybe another 200 feet, and there's part of a deceased individual through the front windshield of a parked vehicle. So it woke you up, it shook you up, and at the same time though, you focused on, we got to get this done. Let's get to it. Things can't wait. We got to, try to regroup and get it back together again. The original ceremonial unit for the fire department was actually run out of probie school, as we call it, which was part of the fire academy. At that morning, out of 12,000 New York City firefighters on the job, there were only 5 of us that technically were assigned to the ceremonial unit. So what transpired was we went down there and we were on the pile with everybody else. And at that point, let's say, 1,000 people were on the pile. Some of them were stockbrokers with the wingtip shoes. Some of them were civilians. Some of them were members of any type of emergency service. And a couple days later, they actually came and found the 5 of us digging separately on the pile in the so-called 1,000 people that were there. So they called us and sat us down and basically said, we anticipate 500 firefighters were killed. We don't have an exact number, but you 5 guys are the only 5 that know the logistics of a full line of duty funeral. So we're going to take you off the pile, send you back to the academy, make it work. We got more important things to worry about. And we went back to the academy and we took one of our large conference rooms and we started getting faxes from headquarters, faxes from family members looking to do some type of closure as far as funerals. Well, because there were approximately 19,500 fragments that were there, obviously the DNA wasn't up and running and the medical examiner didn't have the resources to really do that large volume at that time. We came up with the idea of calling it a memorial service. The memorial service was a full line of duty funeral, except there was no casket. We would carry either a helmet up the center aisle of the church or either a portrait of that individual, a photo of that individual up the aisle. Within a week, we were doing approximately 8 to 12 services a day, 7 days a week for almost 7 months straight. The record we did was 22 in a 24-hour period. It got a little hectic at times, but we expanded from there, and that's pretty much how it all came about. Total came down to 343, and as of right now today, we're looking at approximately 280 members who have passed post 9/11 from the cancers. So we're still doing our funerals, we're still doing our memorials, our plaque dedications, everything that is going on pertaining to 9/11 to this day, 20 years later. To be very honest with you, that brought the country together, unfortunately, okay? No matter where you were, people were talking about it, people were aware of it. Neighbors were actually getting involved, and they were standing on the front lawns and saying, gee, maybe we should give blood, or maybe we should donate, maybe we should make food to the local firehouse, things along those lines. There was a lot more camaraderie at that point. Looking back at things, you know, you realize I worked on the pile with the Royal Mounted Canadian Police. I worked on the pile with Chicago, with Florida, with Australia. I made a lot of friends through that, but at the same time, 20 years later, it seems to be fading away. Everybody's, you know, not that aware of it, and they're not exactly that, you know, receptive to what we're trying to do. It's a part of history. Everybody, you know, including the kids that weren't born yet, they should be taught about it. And it should be a thing that the country should be putting on one of their, you know, top priorities as to remember. There were 880 children from the fire department. Their parents were lost. 880 kids were left without a parent. So, like I said, things along those lines can really hit home, even in a situation like today, you know, where it would be nice to remember them and keep them in your thoughts and prayers.